Hey, what's up, guys? Today I'm going to do a slight deck profile update on my modern deck. Now, I haven't really gone out to play too much modern recently. I've been actually playing a lot of Pioneer, really, a lot with my Grixis Bolus deck, and just kind of having fun with that and testing out some cards and um, figuring out the format and playing on Magic Arena in the Explorer format, trying to figure out the format a bit. So modern, I kind of had it on a bit of a back burner a little bit, but I came up with some ideas that I wanted to try out next time I go out and play modern. I was gonna go out yesterday, but something came up, and so I couldn't go out and play, unfortunately. But wanted to kind of give you a look and an update on my ideas and stuff like that, and yeah, talk about some Magic a little bit. Now, I've been a little busy this week too with Anime Expo. That happened this weekend, 4th of July weekend, and I was there for 3 days, I guess. 2 days I was working at the um, Konami booth, so and then one day I had free to just kind of go and explore um, the event. And it's not my first time there. I think it's my third time or so, and yeah, it's cool seeing a lot of people after more or less 2 years hiatus from having any sort of like conventions. It's great to see everyone coming back out. You know, and now obviously there's COVID still around, and we had to take a lot of precautions to make sure we keep each other kind of safe from spreading the disease. And so we had a lot of precautions and stuff like that. Unfortunately, there was no Magic booth this year at the event. I think 2 years ago, 3 years ago, there was like an area for play for Magic, for either EDH or for I think Modern. But this year there was no Magic booth, no Ultra Pro booth either. Um, when Ultra Pro was there, I was able to pick up the Narset playmat, the Planeswalker one, the Japanese art one, and I think I picked up the Nisa Japanese one. But this year I didn't have anything. I was hoping to pick up maybe like a playmat for the with the Emperor artwork or something like that. But unfortunately they weren't here this year. So I ended up not really buying anything at AX. I ended up just buying a couple of model kits um, and whatnot. I don't really collect figurines. They take up too much space. I mean, I collect Gunpla and they take up a lot of room already. I prefer I prefer my robots over the having a bunch of waifu stuff. But yeah, I'm kind of digressing there a little bit. Just kind of a heads up too. I'm gonna be gone this upcoming week for about a month, so may not see any sort of uploads from me. I'm gonna be traveling and um, won't be near my computer nor my deck, so I'm not gonna be taking my Magic stuff with me. So unfortunately, I'm not gonna be filming anything. But yeah, that's kind of just a small update on what I've been up to, and um, more or less I kind of been on and off of YouTube, just kind of making some content here and there, but not really too much. But anyways, let's jump in. Um, for the most part, this I've been testing this build out for a while now, for almost like a month or so, um, and I think I like how the main deck is so far. So I didn't really change too much about the main deck. I'll go through it just like with every other deck profile to kind of for first time viewers, or you know to see what may or may not change in my deck. Most changes I made in my deck have been towards the rarity um, of the cards. As you see, I picked up some new rarity cards here. I'll talk about in a bit here. But the main changes are going to be to the side deck, because I think the side deck is always going to be the thing that changes the most to adapt to the meta. More so than your main deck. I mean, yes, your main deck can and will change according to the meta also. But I think my main deck so far has been pretty solid. It's been able to handle um, most other decks that are in the meta and that are relevant. It's kind of like a catch-all sort of deck. Like this, being in three colors, we have access to a lot of different tools, and I think um, for the most part, those tools kind of all have worked together to at least give us a decent fighting chance against everything that we play against. Now it's kind of like jack of all trades, master of none, um, deck style that I make, especially when it comes to control. I like having various of tools available to me in order to tackle a certain issue that I'm dealing with when I'm playing against a deck. Now, if I'm playing like a mid-range deck or something like that, then obviously I'm gonna make the deck a lot different. I'm gonna kind of narrow down its focus, kind of try to focus on my game plan and my win condition. Where with a control deck like this, where we're not really developing a board, we're not really putting any sort of threats and board presence on the board, and basically our entire deck is a toolbox to kind of answer threats, remove them, counter them, and eventually win through value or win through maybe a planeswalker or something like that. So yes, that's why my main deck hasn't really changed too much, and I think it's worked pretty well for the past almost like half a year. I think I've had this deck for about half a year now since I started. Um, I think I picked up the deck in February, January, somewhere around there. I don't quite remember. Excuse me. And yeah, I've been playing with it since then, and have been enjoying Modern. Now, I wouldn't say Modern is my favorite format. I definitely think Pioneer might be heading there. Honestly, I really enjoyed Pioneer in the sense it's like low power. You can kind of play jank and get away with it, where it's a little bit harder to do that in Modern, especially when you have threats of like Ragged Band and stuff on turn 1 and 2 and stuff like that, where you gotta deal with them or you lose the game, that sort of thing. It's hard to play like a jankier deck. But anyways, in terms of deck profile, I'll just go through it really quickly. Not too much to say. If you have any questions about my choices or any comments or any suggestions, ideas, just go ahead and leave it in the comments. But yeah, I got two Marches. Now, March, I have a hate and love relationship with this card. It's like this could be Fatal Push, but it also is nice that this thing hits other permanents like artifacts, enchantments, and even um, lands and stuff like that. So I think it's a great card. It sometimes is a little expensive to use, especially if you don't have a white card to pitch for, or you're trying to remove something that's super expensive. The only knock against this card is I wish it hit Planeswalker. If this thing hits Planeswalkers, I would have probably played more of these over Prismatic Ending for sure. But because it doesn't hit Planeswalkers, that's why I kind of hesitant on it. And it is a neggy card. Like, you are minusing yourself. It's kind of like a Solitude. You minus yourself to invoke it or to make it cheaper. So you lose out on tempo. But overall, it's a great card. It's great for hitting lands. I especially love sniping Urza Saga lands, affinity lands, stuff like that. Really like doing that. Or if they have like a man land that you can't deal with, Prismatic Ending cannot deal with man lands. Not only is it sorcery speed, it's also mentions non-land targets, so you can't use Prismatic Endings to deal with man lands. So you can't, kill a Hall of Storm Giant. You can't kill, a Celestial Colonnade, stuff like that. That's what this is usually for, to deal with lands, deal with small enchantments here and there. It's nice that it exiles, so you can hit stuff like a Young Wolf and whatnot, and it exiles them. So I still think it's a nice utility card, nice removal card. Probably I think 2 is okay. Force Prismatic probably are their best removal spell. You can hit almost anything in the game, except for lands. Obviously, you can hit Planeswalkers, which is nice. Now, obviously, it's dependent on the colors of your deck. For the most part, you can hit up to anything up to 5 CMC if you're playing a 5-color deck. I'm playing a 4-color deck, and so I can hit up to 4 CMC worth of mana there. You usually don't want to hit anything higher than that, anyways, because if you're spending 5 mana to remove something, you're probably gonna lose. So, yeah. When I say I'm playing 5 colors, I'm playing 3 colors Esper, the main, and then I've also added red in to make it a 4th color there. Here I have 4 ops. Yeah, plenty of reasons to play op over Consider. I don't really need to fill up my graveyard. I don't want to get rid of my threats that I might need later, so just putting it to the bottom of my deck is better. Works well with Snapcaster, and that's it. Yeah. Two dams. Now I'm debating on adding maybe take out one dam and put in a Supreme Verdict. I have a Supreme Verdict in my side right now. I just want to try out maybe one Supreme Verdict. The only thing I like about Supreme Verdict over Dam is that the fact that it's uncounterable and it works well with Snapcaster if you still need a secondary board wipe. Snapcaster can't, unfortunately, snap this back for overload value, so if you need like another board wipe and you try to flashback a Dam, you're only hitting one thing, so that's the only thing. The only thing I like about Verdict over Dam. But yeah, I'm playing two right now still, and one in the one Verdict in the side. Next, now this is the card I picked up and I upgraded its rarity. Now I was playing three for a bit. Last couple of months I've been testing out three instead of four. Main reason why is obviously if you're playing four and you draw this in your opening hand and you don't have any spells in your graveyard in the early parts of the game, this card can become pretty dead. Or your opponent has graveyard hate or something like that. Now, reason why I put four back is I honestly kind of miss having bodies on the board sometimes. Like I don't mind just snapping out Snapcaster for the sake of just having a 2/2 to kind of accelerate my clocking my opponent, I guess. And for 2 mana, it's that 2/1 body. It's whatever's, and it can also block stuff, stuff like that. And so I got these Ultimate Master box topper ones for a pretty decent price. So I'm getting rid of my foiled foil Modern Master ones that I had. So it was between this or the promo the promo one, but I like this art. I like the blueness to the card. So I'm playing four now, backed up to four. Try it out, and I did cut one card for it, and I'll talk about it in a second. Then next off, four counter spells, for Archmage's Charm, which is I think is a must-have in a control deck. It provides so much utility. Same with counter spells. That's our way to draw. That's why I like Snapcast, because I felt like I was lacking a little bit of draw power without like the third one or the fourth one. So I decided to just go ahead and play it. But yeah, four four Snapcasters for spell counter spells, and then for Archmage, two Kyle. Still like it at two. Great removal, great graveyard hate. Gives you something to be able to kind of hurt our opponent turn game one if they are playing a graveyard strategy. Just an overall flexible card, and reason why I play Esper is mainly for this card here. Now getting into mostly the Planeswalkers, I cut this down to three. What I realized playing four is sometimes I draw too many of these and they don't do anything, or I draw this and I draw like Archmage's Charm. I have to decide between tapping out or leaving up mana for Archmage's Charm or counterspell, etc. There's just a lot of times where in my 3 mana slot I'm holding Snapcaster with an Op maybe, or I'm holding something else like that, and sometimes I just don't want to tap out. And if I draw too many of these guys against certain decks, not too great. I think he's still one of the most broken Planeswalkers in the game for sure. But I'm gonna try out three for now and side the fourth one. If I need a fourth one against like Living End or Rhinos or other mirror matches, like other control decks, then I'll add in the fourth copy of Teferi. But overall, against mid-range decks and stuff like that, Teferi's not that great because you bounce their threat and they're just gonna play it again. It slows them down, but definitely doesn't solve the issue. So I'm trying out three now. That's why I was originally playing three for a while, and then I just went to four. Now I'm back down to three just to see. I still like the one Jace here. Against certain matchups, you resolve this guy, he just wins you the game on his own. Against like if you resolve this against a non-red deck, they have really no way of killing Jace. So you resolve this against, I don't know, like a Bant deck or something like that, or other control decks, other blue-white decks, they just can't remove this guy easily. Then you just win the game from there. Um, so yeah, I like having him. He fixes your hand, can act as a win condition eventually. For the most part, you use him to fix your hand to try to add cards to your hand. But at 4 mana, he is a little pricey, and he's weak to Bolt. But Bolt, it's nice playing him again because Bolt is slowly kind of moving out of the format. A lot of like red decks don't even play that many bolts. They play like maybe 2 bolts. Maybe they're playing like, I don't know, 4 color control Yuri and Money Pile is the only other deck I can think of that plays Bolt and Murktide. Only 2 decks, and maybe some Grixis Death Shadow decks might have 1 or 2 bolts. But for the most part, it seems like Bolt is kind of on its way out, which is kind of weird because it's been, it's what defines modern. It's called a bolt check. So if your creature's weak to bolt and it costs like a bunch of mana, it's unplayable because you're gonna um, lose it to bolt. Like Greasefang, for example, is not played in modern because it's 3 mana and it gets bolted. It doesn't do anything. So it's kind of interesting to see that bolt is slowly kind of falling out of favor. I mean, Unholy Heat has kind of replaced it in some sense, um, but Unholy Heat's got a couple conditions for you to fill before it can actually be a better bolt. But um, yeah, I think with Jace or with Bolt kind of easing out of the format, you might be able to even get away with 2 Jaces. For now, I still like the 1 Jace. I like to resolve him when I'm ahead, or I like to resolve him when I think I can keep him on the board for a couple turns, and my opponent can't remove it, and it's perfect. He's a good win condition. Oops. Next off, I have 2 Wandering Emperors. Wandering Emperors, you can maybe even do 3 if you wanted to. She's just a great card in general. I think I'd like her with the Snapcaster because you have Snapcaster on the board. You can flash her in, give Snapcaster +1/+1, and make it first strike. Stuff you can do like that. Um, so yeah, I definitely like her, and she can win games on her own. If your opponent can't remove her, you can just keep making tokens and pumping them up, making tokens, and yeah, they just get overrun with the tokens. And she's kind of hard to deal with. The only neg is that if they have flyers on the board, they can if you make a token, your token can't block the flyers. So that's like her only real weakness is flyers. But if they don't have flyers, she's great removal, great threat. Can win games on her own. Um, yeah, I think she's one of the better planeswalkers to play in the deck. Then last off, you have just 2 Teferis. Um, yeah, not much to say. Reason you play 2 for redundancy, 2 you can see later in the game, um, but you don't want to see too many of him opening up. If you play 3 copies, you open up with like one of them, it might not be that great. He's a late game win condition. That's why I only like seeing playing 2, so I can just see him later in the game and not super early in the game where he's probably just gonna be a dead card in my deck, or sorry, in my hand. Next off, 2 Solitudes. I only ever felt like I needed 2 Solitudes. I never felt like I needed a third or fourth copy. Um, if you're not playing Snapcasters, you can play 4 of these guys. You can play at that point Kahira in the deck. Uh, I just never liked invoking Solitude, honestly. I only invoke him when I really, really need something dead. But yeah, it's just I think playing too many Solitudes and drawing them early in the game it seems a little bad, and because you're gonna be minusing yourself a lot just to invoke stuff. And I'd like playing him as a at 5 mana, paying the full cost for him, getting him on the board, getting him a +1 token with um with the Emperor is pretty good. That's what I like to do with him. Make him a late game like win condition, block, gain some life, stuff like that. But I don't really like invoking him. That's why I only ever play 2. I don't think I'm gonna change that. But yeah. Next up for the lands, nothing's changed. Lands all the same. Kind of just go through it really quickly. 24 lands, all your basic stuff here. Steam Vents for the 5th color, or sorry, for the 4th color. 5 basics to help fight against Blood Moon. Your 2 man lands. You can play Castle Vantress if you like, if you have room for that. Being 3 colors, I don't really like playing a lot of single color um, lands, and so I'm not playing Vantress. I'm not playing um, Iganjo. I'm not really playing Otawara, stuff like that. These cards are just win conditions for me, so that's why I play them. But other than that, I try to have my lands create as many different color mana as I can. Now, yeah, I think the only land I would add in here maybe would be Otawara, but the only reason I don't like Otawara is because it's 4 mana. There's no way for you to reduce that cost in this deck. You're not playing any legendary creatures. You're always paying 4 mana for Otawara, and I feel like that's just not that great. I don't want to pay 4 mana for to bounce a Teferi back. 3 mana Teferi. Ideally, that's what you would use it for. You would use Otawara, bounce a 3 mana Teferi back, and be able to keep your mana up and open. But you're spending 4 mana. I don't know if I like that. Like, you bounce it back if you don't have another counter spell or something to get rid of Teferi. They're just gonna play it again next turn, and you're back to square one. Um, and that's my thoughts on it. Um, if you're playing Living End, definitely you need to play Otawara because that's your one real way to answer the Teferi without having to really, without having your opponent be able to like counterspell your removal or anything like that. So, yeah, Otawara in a at least a 3 color control deck, I don't think it's too good. You could definitely play it in like a regular blue-white control deck. But yeah, I'm playing Esper, so I don't think I would like to play Otawara in this deck. Granted, I haven't really tried it out, so I don't really know. But even in Pioneer, when I do play my blue-white control deck and I have Otawara, I don't really like it. I don't like bouncing stuff back to my hand. There's not many counter spells in that format, anyways, to kind of like deal with something that you would bounce back to the hand. Unless you're playing like Thought Seizes or something. I end up liking Iganjo a lot more. The white mana legendary land where you deal 4 to a creature attacking or blocking. I like that one a lot better as removal. But yeah, Otawara is namely there if you need to remove a planeswalker of some kind, and it can't be countered, and it can actually be used at an instant speed. So there you go. That's my thoughts on Otawara. Now for the side deck, I've changed it a lot. I'm trying out a couple of things. I haven't got to test this side deck out yet, so I don't know if it'll work well or not. But um, I'll give you some of my thoughts on it as to why I kind of tried to tutor it this way. So now first off, I'm gonna try out the Hill Spellbomb. Now I have used this card before. I have used it when I used to play Grixis Control in my deck, and it's a great card. Because I'm playing white now, I was mostly using Rest in Peace, and I think Rest in Peace is great. It's a card that will win games sometimes, but if your opponent has an answer to Rest in Peace, it can kind of be bad. With Rest in Peace, sometimes I found myself not being able to cast it when I wanted to, because either its 2 mana was too expensive for that time I needed to cast it, or if I cast it, it didn't do much. It didn't impact enough, and so. Or it got removed with my opponent's enchantment hate and stuff like that. And it also kind of conflicts with my Snapcasters. And so I'm trying to replace the Rest in Peace with Spellbomb here. Now I chose Spellbomb over Relic and over Soul Guiding Lantern. Well, I think Spellbomb is better than Soul Guiding Lantern for sure, in the sense that you can tap it to exile the grave and draw a card, whereas Soul Lantern is one or the other. Soul Lantern is a bit better because it doesn't target per se; it just exiles the grave, I think. And on initial it coming into the battlefield, you exile a card from the grave. So it's good for different intensive purposes. Relic of Pagenesis I don't like because it hits your own grave, and that's what I'm trying to not do, is hit my own grave, so that my Snapcasters can be more viable and that they don't become dead, and I can keep them in my main board without having to side them out. Because back then I would side out a couple of Snapcasters and put in Rest in Peace, and I just found that they're a little conflicting. Sometimes I had Snapcasters in a nice grave, and I wouldn't cast Rest in Peace because I wanted to keep Snap up and use its effects. Now, obviously, if they have like an endurance or something, that's fine. Whatever. If they sign endurance in for you, by all means. It's not the best or the worst. But yeah, um, yeah, the hill just it's kind of like best of both worlds. You get to annihilate the graveyard and you get to draw a card. And we're playing black, so I think it's gonna be the best one to do. And you can keep this up. You can hold it. Now the other option instead of this is gonna be unlicensed Hearst. Um, Now I didn't play unlicensed Hearst in this deck, even though it might be really good, because it just takes one Snapcaster to crew the Hearst, which is not bad. You can definitely use that to kind of kill someone with it. The only reason I didn't do Hearst is because I think Hearst may be too slow. Like I feel like would have the same issue between Hearst and Rest in Peace, is where if I play Hearst, it's 2 mana, and that might be too expensive, and it only removes 2 cards at a time. Where sometimes I might need to remove their entire graveyard. Like if I'm playing against Living End, you definitely want to use this to get rid of their entire graveyard. Versus Hearst, you might be able to get rid of 1 or 2 threats, a turn or so, but um, yeah, I think Hearst is a little too slow. I haven't tested it. I don't really know if I can say so. Hearst is definitely good against like undying stuff. If like a young wolf goes to the graveyard and it activates its trigger ability, you can just Hearst it away. It trigger ability resolves without any young wolf coming back. So it's like good against Yawgmoth. I think Yawgmoth will have a real hard time dealing with Hearst. But I think overall Spellbomb is gonna be a little bit better. Hearst might be good against Murktide too, because you're just kind of eating away their grave. You're denying them Delirium, and you're denying them the ability to play a giant Murktide. So that might be better. But Spellbomb, you can kind of do the same thing. You can just crack it, and they lose their whole graveyard. But yeah, so that's what I'm trying out. 2 Spellbombs. Try to preserve my own grave. Decent grave hate, and it cycles itself. So since we're playing black, I think that's one of the hate cards to go for. So I'm gonna try this out. As for my the rest of the side so far, I still got 2 Dovin's Veto. I still got 2 or 3 Aether Gus. Still love this card. Um, Great against most of my matchups, and almost every matchup I play against either has red or green. So um, pseudo counterspell, pseudo board removal. Just great overall. It's like that new Bant spell, the something ending. I think it's like 3 mana, and you can like remove a spell or a permanent on the board, or the graveyard or something like that. You remove it, place it on top or bottom. So it's like that. It's like the new Bant counterspell from New Capenna, I think. I can't remember the card right now, but I think it's like something ending, like Detour ending or something like that. Don't remember. So I'm putting the 4th Teferi in here. Yeah, Teferi can win the game on his own, depending on the matchup. If you deny your opponent a way to play at instant speed, and their deck needs it, you play Teferi. You're good to go. They have to remove this guy at somehow, and majority of the time it's either through like a flying shark token, or like Otawara, maybe prismatic ending, something like that. There's no real easy way to get rid of this guy unless they're playing like aggro or something, where Teferi at that point would be pretty bad against. But yeah, I'm playing 1 Void Ren. I still think 1's okay. I don't know if I hate or love the card, honestly. When I did see it worked fine. I thought it was gonna be kind of like a cheaper version of Outer Worldly March, because it's 3 mana fixed. You're not paying more, not paying less. You're still just killing something for 3 mana. But it does have the weakness that it can't target a land. unlike Vindicate and stuff. But I think you need the instant speed to play uh, in this format. Otherwise, I think you would lose if you don't play um, at instant speed. So yeah, that's my thought on the Voidwind there. Now the part that where it can't be countered, I don't think really matters too much. Maybe against Murktide or something, you can kill their Murktide and they can't counter it. Cool, but for the most part, this deck doesn't really have that much issues with the Murktide. It's got more issues with the Ragavan and the Darcy if they rush you with that, or the Blood Moon. Those are the cards I think are a threat to the deck. Where Murktide, I can generally easily deal with a Murktide. Um, Not a big problem there. Two Kai's Guile. Now I don't know if I still want to play a total of 4 copies. I might cut this down, an additional card down here. Play a total of 3 to Kai's Guile in my deck. Plus I also have um, the Snapcasters, so this playing a total of 4 might be really redundant, and I don't think I need that much graveyard hate, so I might cut this down for something else. I don't know what I'm gonna cut this down for, so I'll think about it a little bit more, and get back to you guys on that one. Um, to sell these, I definitely like to sell these. They've been great in a lot of matchups, and just overall, just can be a threat on its own. I've sometimes just resolved just one Seldy, and then protect it with like counter spells and stuff like that. And my opponent couldn't remove the Seldy, and they just kind of died a slow death because this thing's got flying, so they can't even block it. So they keep swinging in there for 3 damage every turn. Um, and if you have Snapcaster on the board or something like that, you can apply more pressure. So yeah, Seldy is great for certain matches. For certain matchups like against Titan and stuff like that, where they're playing Cavern of Souls, yeah, Seldy's MVP. Or if you're playing against opposing a control match up and they're trying to play a Teferi or something, you can invoke Seldy, stuff like that. So yeah, overall great card. Uh, Next off is Supreme Verdict. I wanted this because there are a lot of decks that are kind of going wide lately. For me, I played against a bunch of affinity decks, and I played against a bunch of like elves decks lately, and they are just going wide, and um, they're just trying to kill you as quickly as possible. So if you can resolve a verdict or resolve a dam, you win the game because they just have a very difficult time building up their board again and applying the same amount of pressures. But yeah, that's why I think you need a minimum of 3 sweepers in the deck. You don't have to play all 3 of them in the main. I think that's kind of bad. I think you just play 2 in the main and 1 in the side. And being that we're playing Esper, you could choose Dam, you could choose Verdict, you can choose Languish, whatever fits your bolt. You can try. But yeah. Lastly, I have Farewell again. Now, this card could be one of 2 cards. It can be factoring gust. I think it's called, or factor gust. Anyways, the idea here is so that we have an answer to deal with like affinity decks, enchantress decks. I did run into a couple enchantress decks, and they have like hexproof. They got like indestructible and their stuff, or whatever reason they have that. We can't really touch their board, so we have a very difficult time trying to remove like enchantress stuff and make it permanent. um, what I like about Fracture Gust is that it's an instant speed and it heals you, but it hits everything. But we ourselves don't play any real artifacts or enchantments per se. So I think for the most part it's not a negative for us. So I debated between the 2 cards. I decided to go with Farewell again because it's more generic. You can hit other stuff. You can use it as a regular sweeper. You can hit graveyards, stuff like that. So that's why I'm going trying out the one Farewell again. I don't know if I'll like it or not. But yeah, you have a couple of sweepers now. You have Farewell, you got Supreme Verdict, and the 2 Dam in the main deck. And so I think for the amount is good there. I don't think you should play more than 4 sweepers. I think 3 to 4 copies, or 3 to 4 sweepers is a good amount, especially in the control deck. Um, Sweepers are bad because they're sorcery speed. Sometimes your opponent's able to like develop a board, not on your turn. Maybe their board's empty on your turn, and on their turn they build a board. They have haste or something like that. Now you're dead because this is a source speed. Um, Only real answer to that is you can play Settle the Wreckage as a choice of sweepers, but a lot of people are playing basics and stuff like that, and so I don't feel comfortable, you know, killing their board and giving them a bunch of land. Yes, you can set them back a bunch of turns, but with the current way that some boards that go wide, they can actually use those lands to cast some other bigger stuff. So I don't know. It Settle Wreckage, I don't think it would be good here. It's like playing Path of Exile. It's like, do you Path of Exile something and then give them a land, or do you just neg yourself? It's probably better to neg yourself rather than giving your opponent card draw. So um, that's why we're going with this sort of package over, like, Settle Wreckage and stuff. Granted, we lose the instant speed interaction. We only have that when we have to ferry, and so that's sorry. I guess I went off a tangent there. That's why I decided between this and Factual Gust, instant speed versus source speed. I think I should be able to get use out of this during my turn, even if they don't have a board, or if I have to ferry, I guess and I upticked it. This card would be great. Now it's bad against, like, if they're playing Spell Pierce, then obviously if you cast this for 6 mana and they Spell Pierce it, you're probably gonna lose at that point. That's where Supreme Verdict would technically be better, but against, like, blue green Enchantress deck, they're not gonna have a counter spell. You should be able to safely play this for 6 mana on your turn and just kind of wipe their entire board and win from there. Affinity decks, they do play, the Spell Pierce. They do play the improvised countered stuff like that. So this card's not too great against Affinity, where Supreme Verdict is a lot better. So you kind of have to just, when you side, you kind of have to kind of pick your package, which one you're gonna go for. Now, granted, these are just one copy of each card. So you may or may not even see them at all. But the idea is to have it in there so you do have an out to wherever their board state is. That that you have this in your deck. If you did side it in, that you have an out to it. Then eventually, when you draw it, it's a win condition there from there. At 6 mana though, it's a little pricey. But I think we can get to 6 mana fairly consistently and still be able to cast this and win the game from there. Okay, well, I think that's it for me. Kind of went on a lot of digression and tangents there. Um, but yeah, so far, those are my idea for where to take this deck next, is to kind of focus on building a better side deck strategy and winning through side deck rather than through the main deck. The main deck, like I said, is kind of like the cookie cutter deck. Like it's able to kind of cut all sorts of different cookies. It's all kind of like jack of all trades, master of none. It's able to kind of do everything, which I hope is good enough. Where, like, you being able to answer everything is enough to kind of like keep you in the game. Where I guess if you narrow it down a little bit more, you may win some games more consistently, where you might lose some other games. So I don't know. I think I think going like the toolbox variant of the blue white control deck is better than going like kind of riding your entire deck strategy on the Challenge of the Void, because that's one of the issues I run into when building a deck. Is like, if you play something like Challenge the Void, not only are you limiting your opponent, you're also limiting yourself. There's cards you can't play. There's cards you have to cast differently. Like, if you play Chalice on 1, you can no longer cast Prismatic Ending for 1. You gotta play 2 for it now. So on and so forth. That style of control I didn't like. So I'd rather make my entire deck into more toolbox and kind of hopefully draw on the cards that I need for that situation and win from there, rather than riding my entire strategy on kind of denying them any plays if they're playing, one CMC spells. They chalice you, or you chalice them and pray they don't have an out to it. For me, that's a little bit more of a boring way to play control, which is why I went for more of a toolbox version. But yeah, I think that's it. I might also upload another Pioneer video sometime this week. But yeah, this week, like I said, I'm gonna be gone. Won't be uploading anything for a long while. But hopefully when I come back, I'll have some free time to kind of go out and play some Magic. Um, might be looking for a new job too. So depending on how everything works out, I might be able to go ahead and head out to my locals again and get a couple games in and kind of give you a battle report. But yeah, anyways, guys, I think that's it for me. Hope you guys have a good one, and see you next time.